obviously getting paid.
Well, most likely.
I was gonna watch the Dodgers. Oh, they're not playing tonight, are they?
Probably safe proceeding. So would you all rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Are there any objections to adopting the agenda as presented tonight?
I'll move to adopt.
Second? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. All right, moving on to the consent calendar. Are there any?
Point of order, Mr.
Yes.
Chairman. Technically, we do need to take a roll call for the record.
Okay,
Would you like me to begin?
yes.
Member Russell.
Aye.
Member List.
Aye.
Chair Lowry.
Aye.
Vice Chair Drobish.
Aye.
Member Friend.
Where? Here.
Okay,
Thank you.
yeah, yeah, really. So, moving on to the consent calendar, are there any of these individual elements that people would like pulled from the consent calendar for further review?
Move to adopt.
Second. All in favor, so say.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Items of interest to the public. This portion of the meeting is reserved for persons wishing to address the commission on any matter not on the agenda. After taking a brief head count, I think I can dispense with the further reading of that element and move on to item 7, and I turn it over to our paid staff.
Yeah, staff would just like to announce that on November the 5th, the Sacramento Area Council of Governments will be hosting a workshop on the update of the Metropolitan Transportation Plan. That's a regional plan that affects the 6 county members and 22 cities that are members of the SACOG area. They're going to be holding a workshop, and that'll be at the county fairgrounds. It'll be from 4 to 8. From 4 to 6, it'll be primarily SACOG, and it'll be a open house format. So we're encouraging the public to come and just participate and speak with the various representatives that will be there available to answer questions about the Metropolitan Transportation Plan. And then from 6 to 8, it'll be primarily a District 3 open house. It'll be kind of a forum to allow people to come then and talk about more of items of interest to District 3, including the city of Placerville. So Supervisor Brian Veerkamp will be there. Of course, I will be there myself, and there'll be some other staff there available to answer questions about projects that are particular to city of Placerville and District 3. And I'll be happy to answer any questions you have about that upcoming workshop.
Thank you, Pierre.
You're welcome.
Any questions for? Okay. Thank you for that. Are there any further communications?
Yeah, there's an additional workshop opportunity, training opportunity for the commission. Sorry about the lateness of getting this out to you, but staff just received it late last week, just prior to the packets going out, and made it available to you. It's a workshop that will be available this weekend down in Sacramento. I did check with our budget, and we do have monies and we can afford the $20 cost, should each of you want to go, we would, of course, reimburse you for the transportation down there. And parking is charged down in Sacramento on Saturdays, but I believe it's only $5 for the entire day. So if those of you who are interested in going, we as staff would encourage carpooling if possible, but we would understand if you do want to go independently. But again, if you do want to go, due to the lateness of this getting out to you, please make those arrangements on your own, and we can reimburse you after the fact. So provide us with receipts for the parking, the receipt for the cost of the workshop, and we've done the Google Earth math on the mileage, and it's basically from City Hall down to the parking garage or City Hall in Sacramento round trip. But it is another opportunity for you to get some training.
Thank you, Andrew. Well, at this point, I guess we're ready to move on into item 8, our workshop. So I presume, Andrew, you're going to be introducing this to us and conducting the presentation?
Yeah, I'm missing my staff report that I provided, or my memo to you, but in essence, this is an item that I brought back to you. Well, I raised this question to you a few weeks ago, and you expressed interest in having a workshop. The city is paid for this series of sessions from the American Planning Association. It's a 2013 national conference, and the way their conference is set up, they have specific sessions that are focused towards the Planning Commission populace or population, and the items that are part of your potential to view, if you wish. Is not staff's intention to show all 5 of these sessions tonight. We would be here for quite some time, but we do have the ability to show this particular webinar over a 6-month period, so we can certainly do this piecemeal. What I asked you in my memo to you is to come prepared tonight to discuss amongst yourselves which session or sessions you want to watch tonight. And I did provide you with an overview of those sessions. So if there's something you want to see first or things you want to see last, please discuss that amongst yourselves, and I can find the right slide to begin. So
question.
Yeah.
If we schedule it for one of these sessions each calendar month, will we be able to finish up before the expiration of the license?
that would probably work. I think we have it till March of next year.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just curious.
They're an
how
hour
long
and
is-
15 minutes
How
long.
long is the session? No,
An hour and 15. Do you guys have the outline, or?
My suggestion, when I looked at it previously, my suggestion or my thoughts were, since these came from a seminar, I would just go in the order that they were presented. To
Right.
me, it was just,
Yeah, speaking for myself as a civil servant and slave to process, I suggest that we view them in numerical order.
Okay, that makes it easy from staff's perspective. Do you have a preference on the number you want to view tonight?
my preference would to do one to see how it goes, and then we could probably subsequently then make a decision if we're up to doing two. I mean, we don't have an agenda tonight, but I think span of attention, for me anyway, I think wanes.
That's a good point. We actually might have future meetings with action items, and there may be a reason why we wouldn't schedule an additional webinar showing on evenings like that, but that's something to certainly take into consideration. Well, without further ado, I'll start the...
Could we get these lights dimmed? Do you know? We'll be able to see them better without the washout. Yeah, that's much better. Okay.
Staff did outreach, staff did outreach this to the El Dorado County Planning Commission, and so we left that as an open invitation. Based on the audience, I guess they, they had other things to do. There is a baseball game going on tonight.
And welcome to the 21st Century Planning Commission short course. My name is Ann Bagley. I'm a member of the Board of Directors of the American Planning Association. We'd like to welcome those of you who are here in Chicago with us and those of you who are joining the webinar. We'd like to express our appreciation to the Lincoln Institute of Land Policy for its support of this program. The program consists of 5 sessions this morning and this afternoon with breaks in between. Webinar audiences can ask questions by emailing them to education@planning.org. We also want to remind you that tomorrow morning for planning commissioners at 6:45, there is a breakfast, and we'd love to have you join us. And we also have a facilitated session on Monday afternoon at 2:30. We really appreciate all of those who are presenting today. They've made the effort to come to give us a lot of information about how planning commissions should work and how what we need to know. So we're really glad to have you here today. I'd now like to turn the program over to Ben Herman and Ann McBride and their program on the overview of the planning process. Thank you for coming. Good morning, and welcome to the 21st Century Planning Commission Short Course. My name is Ann Bagley. I'm a member of the Board of Directors of the American Planning Association. We'd like to welcome those of you who are joining the webinar. We'd like to express our appreciation to the Lincoln Institute of Land Policy for its support. Here in Chicago with us, and those of you who are joining the webinar. We'd like to express our appreciation to the Lincoln Institute of Land Policy for its support of this program. The program consists of 5 sessions, this morning and this afternoon, with breaks in between. Webinar audiences can ask questions by emailing them to education@planning.org. We also want to remind you that tomorrow morning for planning commissioners at 6:45, there is a breakfast, and we'd love to have you join us. And we also have a facilitated session on Monday afternoon at 2:30. We really appreciate all of those who are presenting today. They've made the effort to come to give us a lot of information about how planning commissions should work and what we need to know. So we're really glad to have you here today. I'd now like to turn the program over to Ben Herman and Ann McBride and their program on the overview of the planning process. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Ann. Good morning, all. Those of you who are here in person and those of you who are watching us on the web. By way of introduction, my name is Ben Herman. I'm a planner with a private firm called Clarion Associates. I've been working as a planner for about 35 years. First half of my career was split between working on development projects and assisting communities and planning commissions. And for the last 10 years, I've primarily been working with communities. My partner in this presentation, I'll introduce herself, by comparison is a planning commissioner and is also a practicing planner, and she spends most of her time either on a planning commission or working with planning commissioners. So our job today is to provide you with a background and an overview of the job of a planning commissioner, some of the roles and responsibilities that you'll face, some of the 2 roles that a planning commissioner is involved in, long-range planning and current development planning, talk about some of the tools and the development review process, and then how to begin to put the pieces together. So before I start, I wanted to just gauge, at least for those of you who are here in person, how many of you are planning commissioners? I'm going to assume most of you are. How many of you are new planning commissioners? Looks like about a third or so. Well, you picked a great day. For those of you who are not here with us live, they picked a great day to be doing this. Just walking over, and it's 35 degrees and snowing outside. So it's a really good day to be spending a Saturday focusing on planners training topics for planning commissioners. So let me start with some basic information on roles and responsibilities. In many ways, in the planning community, the job of a planning commissioner is one of the most complex roles that anyone could face, particularly since most, if not all, planning commissioners are citizen planners. What you'll be asked to do as a planning commissioner is to focus both on long-range community planning as well as focusing on short-term development issues. And for those of you who are already serving as planning commissioners, I can almost guarantee that during each year that you serve as a planning commissioner, you will also be involved in controversial projects and find yourselves from time to time in a hot seat that maybe wasn't particularly in the job description when you signed up to be a planning commissioner. And I hope you'll stick around for some of the sessions later today, or listen in some of the sessions later today about the ethical aspects of the decision-making process and the meeting process to really help ground you in some of what you need to know to take that aspect of your role and to do it well with less pressure. So planning commissioners have really 2 primary roles. Pushing my own buttons here. Long-range planning and development review. And I'm going to start with a brief overview of each, and then I'm going to spend a little bit more time on the long-range planning role, and Ann's going to delve into the development review role. So starting with an overview, long-range planning. For many commissioners, this is the most fun part of their job. This is the most rewarding, where you really get to focus on the future of your community. You get to do fun stuff like visioning, and things that really one of the most important roles as a citizen planner, really helping guide the preparation of your community's long-term plans and policies that you'll then in turn use in the development review process. When we talk about long-range planning, for most of it, that means the comprehensive plan. It'll be called different things in different states. For some of you, it might be a general plan or a master plan, but essentially the same thing. Comprehensive plan is an adopted policy document. And I say that, use the word policy deliberately to distinguish it from a regulatory document, such as zoning and subdivision laws that Ann will talk about in more detail. It's the community's policy. It's its blueprint for the future. Most comprehensive plans are primarily about the physical development of the community. In fact, I always cringe when I go to a community and I ask them, well, do you have a comprehensive plan? And they say yes, and what they pull out is the map. And they say, this is our comprehensive plan. And that's just one portion of a plan. So while most plans focus on physical form, they also increasingly deal with interrelated topics such as housing, transportation, economic development, and there's some new and emerging trends that some of you may be experiencing in your communities of community health, of social equity, in some places climate change and other topics depending on the politics of your community. You may begin to experience some of those topics as part of the process of doing a plan. So I wanted to start a little bit with what is the role of a planning commissioner or a planning commission in the process of making a plan. And the answer is it could be a number of different roles that you may serve as a planning commissioner in plan making. In some cases, in a larger community, you're most likely to serve in an oversight capacity. The plan will be prepared by staff or by consultants, and your role as a planning commissioner is to oversee that preparation, to kick into the process or be involved in the process at key points along the way, but the plan will be prepared under your guidance. In smaller jurisdictions, you may actually be the ones who prepare the plans. And I've seen that in a number of cases where the community wants to update its comprehensive plan. There is no staff, there are no resources. The planning commissioners roll up their sleeves and say, we need to update our plan because it no longer serves us well. So, and you could prepare all or part of it yourself. Now, and I want to spend a little bit of time also about the adoption process, and I'll get into that in a little bit, because one of the most important things for planning commissioners to understand is what they have the authority to adopt and what they're simply advising their governing body on. So I want to make sure that you leave here this morning with some clarity on that. Now, in most states, planning commission is an advisory body, and they make recommendations to elected officials. I'm from Colorado. In my state, one of the true powers that a planning commission has is to adopt the plan. If you read the Colorado state statute, the plan is adopted by the planning commission. Some communities, the elected officials by charter, if they're a home rule community, will also institute a rule where they then have to ratify it, or sort of the council, commissioners or Board of County Commissioners will say, well, we want to adopt it too, even though the state statute says it's the planning commissioner's responsibility. But in most states, as a planning commission, your job is to help prepare the plan and then to recommend it to your elected officials, who will then adopt it or not, depending on their particular process. So that's a really brief overview of the plan making process. I'll come back to that in a moment. The second hat that you wear as a planning commissioner is to weigh in on development applications and land use issues. So these could be subdivisions, it could be zoning changes, other types of activities. Ann's going to cover that in detail. This is the most complex role that you're going to play as a planning commissioner, just because of the range of topics and the breadth of issues that it covers, and frankly the microscope under which you work will be focused on your role in the development review process. When you start delving into the role of development review, you suddenly find yourself dealing with all kinds of complex topics that you may or may not have the background for. Transportation, utilities, water, wastewater, storm drainage, landscaping. Again, Ann's going to cover this in detail, but so there are technical aspects of the development review process. There are legal aspects of the development review process. What are the areas of review that you can and can't delve into? What is the procedure by which development review occurs? And particularly on matters such as zoning, where they may be subject to challenge or they actually are legislative or quasi-legislative proceedings, how the process occurs is very important because there needs to be a proper record. And again, you'll hear more about that later today in detail in the meeting process. This is the one area of particular serving as a planning commission that's important to work with and rely on your planning staff, should you have one, because they're going to do the bulk of the heavy lifting in terms of the reviewing the applications and preparing staff reports. And again, you'll hear more about that as we go on this morning. But your job, primarily as a planning commissioner when it comes to development review, is to prepare a recommendation on that action to go to your elected officials. Be it a subdivision, should it be approved, with what conditions, should it not be approved. So you'll be forming a recommendation and a specific, very specific recommendation on each development matter before you. So just to briefly summarize roles: plan making, overview of the plan development process, adoption or recommendation. The other thing that sometimes you'll get into as a planning commissioner is getting involved in the review of other plans, whether it might be a transportation plan that the transportation department is preparing or a parks and open space plan. Commonly those will come to a planning commission for review and input. In some states and regions, it's not uncommon for a planning commission to be asked to review other jurisdictions' plans. Again, in the state that I live in, the state statute requires county planning commissions to review plans for jurisdictions. They have no authority over them, but they provide comments and recommendations back to the other government entity. It could be a regional plan that you might be asked to involve in. So it's a pretty broad range of things in the plan making side. On the development review side, it's more straightforward. Your job is to review and provide a recommendation to a governing body in most instances. In some cases, there are actions that planning commissioners can act on directly. Some states can grant authority to planning commissions to approve minor subdivisions or site plans, where essentially you are the final authority on that matter unless it's appealed beyond the planning commission. But for the most part, your job is to provide a recommendation. I want to talk for a minute about staff roles and responsibilities. And we were talking before our presentation, it's not uncommon for people to come onto a planning commission. They don't really understand what goes on behind the scenes. Who can they rely on? What are the resources that they have? What are they going to be dealing with? So it's very, very important. And a good planning department, a good planning commission chair will orient you to really understand what it is that staff's role is, what they can do to help. They have a number of specific roles. One is they'll be the ones typically who'll be responsible for preparing the plans that you'll use to review development applications. They'll be the ones who will do the initial review and provide you with recommendations with a staff report, in some cases with a recommendation on projects, so you'll get a packet of materials, and Ann's going to go into that in more detail. Their primary job, the staff's primary job, is to provide the support to you that you need as a planning commissioner to do your job. So usually your first line of contact is with the planning department, planning staff. You'll also have quite a bit of interface with public works and engineering staff, particularly on projects that involve transportation or infrastructure or drainage concerns, where they'll be delving into the details and working with you. Other departments, you may be involved with state agencies, state highway departments. It could even be federal agencies if it involves wetlands issues, for example, in terms of what their comments are, their reviews are on projects. Could be police, your police and fire and emergency service providers, be they your municipality or district, will be involved both in long-range planning as well as in development review, because their concern will be on how are we going to serve the community long-term with these essential services, in the plan-making side, but in the development review side, their concern will be, will project X and Y have an impact, and what will it be on us, and how do we mitigate it? Let me talk for a minute about the governmental role, the governmental body roles in planning. What's a governing body? Governing body is city council, town council, board of supervisors, whatever you might call it, but the elected officials in your community, they play a number of roles. First of all, they're the ones who appoint you. Typically, a planning commission is appointed by the governing body. Their role in many but not all communities is to adopt the comprehensive plan. They adopt the regulations by which you administer planning practices in your communities, the zoning regulations, subdivision regulations. In most communities, they're the ones who have the final authority on development matters. So a planning commission may prepare and forward a recommendation on, for example, a subdivision application, but ultimately planning in your community. So let's talk about long-range planning. This
This is not working like it's supposed to. Yeah. It's funny. It's like we can't. Only portions of this is downloaded. And no, this is streamed from Chicago. Yeah, they're holding rights to it. I can't get past slide. Well, here's some more slides. Let me see if I can get to. We were on 15. It shows up on here. I can read it, but oh, now it's gone. Exactly. Yeah, this isn't working. Nothing to do with us. It's the slides just suddenly go blank. Yeah, I played it. I played one on my office computer for 20 minutes just in the background to see. Yeah,
So what happened? It stopped the slide.
the slide disappears.
Okay, well, click on the video and then maximize it and then do the escape. See if it comes up. I mean, but start the video. Press escape.
I want to talk for a minute about staff roles and responsibilities. And we were talking before our presentation, it's not uncommon for people to come onto a planning commission, they don't really understand what goes on behind the scenes. Let me talk for a minute about the governmental role, the governmental body roles in planning. What's a governing body? Governing body is city council, town council, board of supervisors, whatever you might call it, but the elected officials in your community, they play a number of roles. First of all, they're the ones who appoint you. Typically, a planning commission is appointed by the governing body. Their role in many but not all communities is to adopt the comprehensive plan. They adopt the regulations by which you administer planning practices in your communities, the zoning regulations, subdivision regulations. In most communities, they're the ones who have the final authority on development matters. So a planning commission may prepare and forward a recommendation on, for example, a subdivision application, but ultimately it is the elected officials who have the final authority. In most communities, even where a planning commission has final authority, there's usually the opportunity for the governing body to be the appeal board, if you will. So if there's a call, sometimes some communities, the council itself can call a matter up from a planning commission for appeal. Most often,
Chair Lowry. Due to unforeseen circumstances and not knowing when or if this will be corrected in the short term, what is the direction of the commission this evening?
Drop back 5 and kick. I think that I propose we move on to item 9. Yeah. Well, that's item 10. We have to iterate through this other stuff.
Well, I concur with that, but maybe, perhaps obviously you can contact the association and say, we're really having this problem, and we've paid for this, right? And this is the only way it's available. It's not available like on a DVD set or anything like that. So, all right, well, we expect them to perform. We paid for it, so see what the technical issue is. You said you were able to do it at your work PC, which is probably hardwired. It's not a streaming issue here. Are we hardwired here?
We're not hardwired, but it's actually more bandwidth than being hardwired.
Okay,
Yeah, we have a full pipe coming in, just
okay.
nobody else is using this.
So it's the delivery side, right?
I mean, the bandwidth is huge
Okay.
compared to even being plugged in,
Okay,
so
all right.
it's not the bandwidth problem.
What I could do is try to advance to another topic to see if by chance those are available for viewing. I'm not gonna,
I'd rather not go part way into another one, personally. You know what I'm saying? So we'll start one, and we'll get part way, then we're gonna have to come back and start that one all over again, so.
I think you're
I hope
owed
that's
some
not
set.
discouraging.
I'm sorry.
I didn't mean to be discouraging, but that's
No.
my,
No, and I think you're owed some answers from the vendor on this.
Can you get a refund?
yeah, George spent a lot of time dealing with their IT, and we found out that what they were changing providers or changing who
Hoster-
yeah,
hosting?
who hosts
Yeah.
these things, yeah.
there you go. That's,
And
I had to take all the videos off of an old vendor server and put them on their internal server.
Oh, this is their internal server.
And so, who knows who did that for them? Could
Yeah.
have been, the secretary, I don't know if they have an IT department, so,
It's not complete.
yeah.
they try to shove it away.
yeah, none of them are showing up here, not even.
I'll let you guys decide
Yeah.
whether we should, but if they do decide that they don't wanna continue, just this.
Well, I'd concur with the recommendation, move to item 9 and let staff work this out with the vendor.
Yeah,
Yes.
That'd be
Yeah.
my inclination.
What would you like to do?
Let's move on to item
Okay,
9.
move on. Do you have any items?
I dropped my binky.
We have a couple items for.
Just a couple of items of interest. The city council heard the appeal on the Boys and Girls Club, and if you recall, they appealed 3 of those conditions. They were appealing the one condition that was requiring them to submit a landscape plan prior to issuance of a grading permit, and they were also considering an appeal of the traffic impact mitigation fees that was applied to the project, and also they were appealing the application or the requirement to do road frontage improvements along Green Valley Road. So it's been referred back to staff to do a further research or another look at the traffic impact mitigation fees and see how they could be reduced. We're also looking at the cost of doing the frontage improvements on Green Valley Road. So staff will probably be returning back to the city council, hopefully with some recommendations on those items at their November 11th meeting. Another item I want to call to the commission's attention is we're very pleased that we've offered the city engineer position to Rebecca Neves. She will be coming on board November the 3rd. And then we've also we'll be hiring a woman by the name of Katie Ryerson. She will be our associate civil engineer, and she will be starting tomorrow. So we're very happy about that. That means we'll be fully staffed in the engineering division, and that's going to help us out immeasurably. And I think that's all that I have, unless Andrew has anything else.
Any ideas as to agenda items for the November 4th meeting? Oh, it's election, that is election night, so I'm presuming that might be canceled.
No, we've held meetings on election night in the past, but because this room is no longer used as a polling place. Well, at this point, staff was anticipating having additional webinar showings or showing. At this point, that is undetermined whether that will happen. So at this point, we have no action items that are anticipated for that evening, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Sure, I agree. Well, we'll just proceed on the hoped assumption that APA will iron out its program delivery problems for us, and we'll come back to session 1 again.
Okay.
I suggest we also ask them about an extension to the license too.
I got a question that was created from the video that we saw. They mentioned that a lot of times the planning commission will review other entities' plans, and I'm trying to think, would the city ever review SACOG plans, like when they went through with the blueprint and it was out for submission and review, general review? I don't recall Placerville Planning Commission ever directly reviewing like the blueprint when it was under construction. Is that a possible thing for, since we're a member, shouldn't we be at least notified of open regional plans that would affect us and provide our input? We can always provide it as a regular citizen, but would it make sense for City of Placerville to make a recommendation overall on regional plans that affect us?
I'll just say that I kind of understand Michael's point from the standpoint of it. I'm new at this, but my experience has been is things come to us from SACOG as fait accompli, and it's not clear that there's been any stakeholder input from planning commissions.
Mr. Chair, and before you answer the question, Pierre, maybe a advanced question would be, is there a standardized process for review of these documents and proposals and plans such as the blueprint?
My experience with SACOG, because I actually served on the SACOG board on the past, so I was a board member, and so basically the input is through the representative, the city's representative that serves on SACOG, and right now that person is Mayor Carl Hagan. He's actually on the SACOG board, and so it is through him that the city's desires, expectations, comments are provided to that body as part of that decision-making body of SACOG. So it's then delivered to the SACOG staff. As far as the individual planning commissions from either the 6 county or 22 city members, it's my understanding, or at least in my experience, is the individual planning commissions and councils don't take up those documents. It's through the representatives, and SACOG, whenever they, for example, they're doing the Metropolitan Transportation Plan update, which is done every 4 years, they will hold workshops in each of the member cities and counties for public input, the general public, to give input on those plans. And so I think that's how it works with respect to SACOG.
Is it one city, one vote?
No, I think it's based on the population of the jurisdiction. So the city of Placerville has 1 member where, say, the city or county of Sacramento has more than that. I can't recall the total number of members on the SACOG board, but it's, you know, it's a lot of members.
Be better if we had a Senate model.
Well, then it occurs to me that it might be an interesting exercise to find out what, if any, communications, informal or formal, take place between the planning commissions and the SACOG reps for the 22 cities, what their, I don't want to say best practices are, but what maybe the prior art is.
Yeah, staff can certainly speak with the SACOG staff and see what their typical process is. But our earlier announcement about the workshop on November 5th, I encourage any of you that would be interested in the Metropolitan Transportation Plan update, I would attend that workshop. It's an open house, and so you'll have the ability to actually meet with SACOG staff at that open house and ask that very question and get it from the horse's mouth, if you will.
At that workshop or open house, do you think they'll be able to define their formula calculation for getting us the RENA numbers? And why empty housing is not included in their formula? Probably
not. I would be assuming that the SACOG staff available will be from their transportation side, since this is in regards to the transportation plan and not the housing element updates.
Are there any other items to bring before the city council? Oh my God, planning commission? Speaking to the microphone.
I'll just announce it's 5-0 Giants.
Okay. Meeting stands adjourned.